Allison Rosen. Allison Rosen is your new best friend. Allison, with her the good times never end. Allison Rosen, doing the wavy pencil dance again. Allison Rosen, Allison's your new best friend.
Hey everyone. Hi. Hello. Welcome to another exciting episode of Allison Rosen is your new best friend. I am sitting here in my studio with someone who's been on my show before, but never in person. So this is pretty special. She just took her very exciting fur coat, fake fur coat, but fuzzy fake, like a whipped confection coat off in order to get ready for the show. She is a podcaster. She hosts many podcasts, perhaps most famously for Crying Out Loud. And she is an author, best-selling author of numerous books. Her latest is Drunkish, Loving and Leaving Alcohol. Please put your hands together for Stefanie Wilder-Taylor.
That's the fake audience outside.
Yes, exactly.
It's a studio audience.
It's a studio audience.
A lot of people don't realize that probably.
No, they think it's real. I like to keep it going. I tell them it's real and stuff. But anyway, hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on your show.
It is wonderful to have you in person. Full disclosure, that was not the first intro. I did another one where I was getting into talking about and we talked each other's ears off. It's blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, I got to do this over. And you said, no, keep that one. But it was too late at that point.
Because we had talked each other's ear off. We'd been bonding and telling stories.
We've been gossiping.
Gossiping.
A lot of hot gossip,
hot,
I would say.
Hot goss.
Okay. A lot to get into. Let's just start with something very important. Shrimp tails.
Oh.
So last week or 2 weeks, within the last 2 weeks, my mother-in-law was here. She loves shrimp. My son loves shrimp. I like shrimp. I wouldn't say I love it, but I like it. But anyway, she was saying, you can eat every part of the shrimp. You can eat the tail also. And I was sort of she was talking to my son and I was walking in and out of the room and I thought, that sounds gross and weird. And I just filed it away as that's a weird, gross thing that maybe I misunderstood. And then there I am reading Drunkish and you're talking about your love of fried shrimp when you were a child. And that you loved them so much, you ate the tail.
I ate every part of it.
Snapchat.
And I wouldn't do that now.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
It's good to know.
Things that you think as a kid, you're like, why would I not eat this? It's crunchy and delicious. You just don't think that hard about it.
Okay. See, I was hoping, and I'm no one to talk. Any longtime listeners of my show know I should not be talking. I eat the weirdest combinations of stuff. I can't believe it's not butter spray on everything.
Me too.
Really?
I just put some, I can't believe it's not butter spray. I literally just put some on a piece of toast before I left the house today.
Yeah, I mean, that's perhaps the most normal. Yeah. Oh, I ate miso flavored ramen last night and gave that a healthy spritz.
Why wouldn't you?
Makes everything better, creamier, saltier. It's just, okay, I'm glad we have this in common.
Yeah.
But I just have walked this earth for so many years, never heard of eating shrimp tails, and then twice in the space of a week. Okay, but you're saying you wouldn't do it anymore. But my mother-in-law is saying it's okay.
I don't know. I'm old now, and I don't want things caught in my teeth. It's too sharp. I'm going to have a lot of hang-ups about it now, but I just didn't. For
a second, I was thinking maybe you guys are talking about the meat that's stuck in the tail, but you're talking about the crispy cartilaginous thing that you wouldn't want to.
Yeah, you put it that way, and I want to go back through time and stop myself from doing that. But
I'm sorry. Let me describe it in a more appealing way. You're talking about the deliciously zesty, crunchy tail.
It's so funny though that she was saying that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
she will order. For me, shrimp sushi is a no thank you.
Well, I just feel common. It's basic. That's basic bitch sushi. You know what I mean? What you can just have shrimp at other times. If you're in a sushi restaurant, order some sushi.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
But she likes shrimp that much that I've seen her order shrimp sushi. If I order a sushi platter or something. I feel like saying omakase is pretentious in a way, but then saying sushi platter makes it sound like I'm at like Red Lobster or something. If I get an array of little sushi bits and there's a shrimp one in there, I'm thinking, well, they're just offloading, you know?
Interesting. See, now if I saw that, I would be like, well, okay. You know, if it's here, I'm eating it. I love shrimp. But if it's not here, I'm not ordering it.
And if it has the tail on, though, are you like, down the hatch?
No, then I'm going to pinch off the tail and put that aside.
Right.
Like a regular person would, you know?
Although in a sushi restaurant where they're, you know, crafting the perfect sushi constellation, they're not going to leave the tail on unless they intend for you to eat it.
Sometimes they do, though. Like sometimes those shrimps at sushi restaurants, now I haven't ordered it, but I've seen, like, we're not talking just a piece of shrimp sushi. You're talking about like this kind of fancy, you'll see like the freaking head on there. You know what I mean?
No, I'm talking about
like, no, thank you.
I can't do heads either. No heads, no legs.
No.
I don't want to know that this swam and was alive and had eyes, no eyes.
Communicate, had feelings,
dreams, had that they put aside to raise their children. I ordered crawfish once when I was like 12 and we were on Lake George, and I don't know what compelled me to do this, but they arrived at the table and I looked down and I was like, I cannot possibly eat these. They're cute and little and they have heads.
Yeah, no, nightmare.
Have you ever had crawfish?
I have, but not with the head on it.
So then what does it, but did it have the body and the shell and all that?
I don't think so. I feel like no. You know, maybe I don't remember because it was a real long time ago, but I would remember if I ate something with the head on it.
Yeah. And I don't want fish with a head. No. I don't want a trout.
No, I don't want to see it. Yeah. That should be off of it before we are doing any business together.
Right.
That's not a delicacy. Like, no.
I don't want to suck a fish head. I want a fillet of fish, not the McDonald's thing, although I did used to like those. I want like a cut of fish that looks like it could come in a children's plastic toy food thing where it's like, you know, here's like a steak, here's a piece of fish, here's this. And it just looks like a little,
like the way swordfish looks.
Yes.
Kind of. Like just a piece of fish. It's all kind of uniform.
Right.
It all has a kind of the same thickness. Not maybe a lot of skin involved. Like it's just a piece of fish.
Right. You don't even, you're not even, like my children who are catching on that where meat comes from and stuff. But they might not even know, like, was this living once? They wouldn't know.
No clue.
That's the fish dream. Okay. Thank you for indulging all my questions about all of this.
I'm just impressed that you read the book.
Yeah.
Or even part of it.
Well, okay. So I was reading it as one would read a book that they're enjoying immensely, like each page, each word. And then I was like, at this rate, I will not have finished it by the time you get here. So then I started picking up the pace and I skipped around a little more.
That's fine.
I'm going to go back though and read the whole thing. Because everyone, go get Drunkish. It comes out on January 16th. It is, it's so well written and it's so enjoyable to read. It's like people who will read it and they will want you to be their best friend. And like, it's the kind of thing where you're like, I'm enjoying hanging out with this writer. I don't want to put it down.
Thank you so much for saying that because I teach memoir writing. It's like one of the things that I do. And that's always my whole goal is I don't think that I can write like beautiful poetic prose. Like I didn't go to college and I always have a lot of insecurity about my writing because I don't feel like I write in a poetic way. I don't feel like I write like other writers that you read and you go,
like, Walt
wow,
Whitman.
Of course. Right. I'm not writing about any ponds. Like there's no, but I feel like what I can do is the only thing that I do, which is like try to write unfiltered and try to write the way I talk a little bit, try to communicate the way I talk, but of course exaggerated, but of course I'm just always racked by insecurity. Like once I write it, I'm like, it feels like anybody could do that, but that's the biggest compliment. Cause I'm always like, okay, the one thing that I think I can do that doesn't necessarily come easy to everybody is make it sound like like I'm talking to a friend.
It's so like familiar and conversational. And that's really hard to do. So how did you learn how to write memoirs?
I don't know. I think that, you know what? I will say that I was always a voracious reader. When I was a kid, that was like my drug. Mm-hmm. I mean, I read mountains of books and I just really enjoyed reading. And I think that that combined with having done stand-up, so writing jokes, and then I wrote a lot on television shows, but nothing good and nothing long form. It's very different. And I've written a couple of scripts in my life, but again, that's
like movies or TV shows?
A couple of movie scripts, not for pay. I mean, I wrote them hoping to sell them. They did not sell. But I mean, that's the only experience that I brought to it. So after I had a baby, I was like starved for a way to express myself. I couldn't really go to clubs and do stand-up. I wasn't writing on a show, and I felt really stifled just creatively. I was like, all I'm doing is going to Target, and I've got this baby, and I'm miserable, and I had some postpartum depression, and I was like, I just don't know what to do to get things out of me. And then I had heard about blogging, and I just thought that sounded interesting. So I decided to start a blog. I shouldn't say I started blogging, because I started a blog and I wrote one post and it was 800 words. So it's not very long, about being a mom and how I felt like I'd been sold this bill of goods. And I got a book deal off of that. So you can imagine the imposter syndrome that took me over when I got a book deal. And I was like, because my thing was like, just say yes. You know, I'm like, of course I would love to write a book. I'd dreamed of writing a book. I just never written one, you know? So when I got the book deal, I had to figure out how to do it. And it was hard. I wrote an essay, and before I got the book deal, the agent was like, what else do you have? Do you have other stuff? And I was like, of course I do. Like, what do you think I've been doing? Like writing all the time. And he's like, okay, don't put it on your blog. Like, just send it to me. And I was like, okay. And then tell me like what some of the chapters would be. So I wrote a thing and I sent him what some of the chapters would be. But of course I didn't write more.
Wait, so did you not have to do a formal proposal?
No, I didn't have to do a formal. I have done them subsequently. I've done several, but for that book, no. So I didn't write more. I wrote this thing and I sent it to him and I never heard anything. So like weeks go by and I'm writing to him. I'm like, hey, so what's happening? And he said, well, where's the writing? And I was like, oh, dear. Well, I was like, okay, coming up. So then I quit. I was like, well, I got to write something.
Yeah.
So I thought of some stuff to write about. I wrote something about being pregnant. I called it Pregoland. And I wrote about how I was a miserable pregnant person. And I was like, I'm not posting the picture of the ultrasound on my refrigerator. I wrote something edgy about being pregnant. And then I wrote a couple more things and I sent them to my brother. And then my brother read them. He's really funny guy. And he was like, too angry. Like you sound angry. And I was like, okay. And he was like, I like this joke. I like this. I like this. This run is like too mad. So I went back and I adjusted and that was like me learning how to write. And then I sent it back to him. Then he was like, okay, I think this is good. And then I sent it to the agent and he was like, great, I'm getting you a book deal. Then this editor from Simon & Schuster, he's like, I have a call for you with this guy who wants to give you a book deal, but you got to like convince him. So I'd have a conversation with him and he's like, can you write about potty training? Meanwhile, I have like a 4-month-old at this point. So I was like, of course I can. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I just said yes to everything. And then I like freaked out when he was like, okay. And then I signed the papers and then I went, oh God, I have to write a book. I was not thriving. I was crying a lot. There were many times where I was telling my husband, I'm like, I have to give the money back. Like, I don't know how to do this. And then I got like tips along the way. Like my husband would say, okay, I would write something and I would let him read it. And he'd be like, but who are you talking to? You need there needs to be an antagonist kind of like. And I was like, well, I don't know. I'm not really mad at anybody. And he's like, well, like I'm writing about breastfeeding. He's like, well, who
He's like, not angry enough.
Yes. He was like, well, if you're going to feel extremes about your experience, who is, and I figured out that, oh, I'm going against like the pressure out there. And who is giving that pressure? Like lactivists, like people that are being very extreme about everybody must breastfeed, which was the whole thing when I had a kid. So I learned like, okay, what's my angle? Who am I talking to? And my editor once just gave me some really good advice where he was like, because I would always feel like I want to please everybody. I want to write something that's like not going to make anybody mad at me. Like that people are going to be like, you're so great.
You are saying the words inside my head about how I feel about myself.
I was always petrified of like making people mad or they're going to be like, why is she saying that? Or whatever. But my editor said to me, because I was like, I want to write about not falling in love with my baby at first sight. And that was a big pressure. Yeah. Everybody said, oh, as soon as the baby's on your chest, you're going to
never felt a love like this.
Never. Yeah. It will be always the best day of your life. Was having my child the best day of my life? No. I mean, later moments for sure were like great times in my life. But the day I had her that I was like crying and like on medication for the C-section and like freaking out and not knowing how to breastfeed her and up all night trying to figure out how to change a diaper. No, that wasn't the best day of my life.
Yeah.
Was that a huge change in my life that ended up being for the better? Yes. But I wanted to break down some of that like bullshit. It's okay if we don't feel like that.
Yeah.
If we don't. So anyway, but I remember thinking, I told my editor, people are going to be so mad. And he was like, well, that's not who you're writing to. Like you're writing to somebody else. You're writing to you. So when you're writing something, write it like you're writing to your audience. Like you are writing to your best friend. You are having coffee and you're going like, somebody that relates to you.
That's is really good advice.
Talk to one person.
That is really good advice.
And I've always done it like that ever since. It was really helpful advice.
That's great advice. Yeah, I sometimes get the voice. It's why I try not to read comments, even though I still do sometimes.
I don't.
I have a waxing and waning relationship with it. So like when I'm in a stronger place, then sometimes I will. And then when I'm feeling like when I was on the Carolla show, I stopped because it was just, there were ups when I would, encounter stuff where people liked me, but it became too painful. And like, I have such a tendency to have the voice of the haters in my head and to imagine them reacting to everything I'm saying, that I felt that it certainly wasn't making me better having all that in my head. So, but that's why it's really good what you're saying, to think about like, you're writing for the people that like you, that are going to get this.
What makes it really hard is when you become aware of all these people that are vehemently opposed to you and want to talk about it to other people that are also vehemently opposed to you. And then they find kindred spirits and go, thank God we could trash Allison, or we can trash Stefanie, or isn't she ridiculous? Or, oh my God, thank God I found somebody who also finds her so unfunny and so horrible. Then it's very difficult to do what you do without thinking like, oh, there's people that are, every word I say, they're like hating me.
Picking it apart. Yes. So what I very recently discovered is like a whole, like, do you know of snark pages on Reddit?
Of course. Yeah.
But I somehow didn't know about this until within the last 6 months. There was this TikToker that was like, well, she still exists. Are you on TikTok?
Not really. No.
Okay. Are you aware of the trend of like cottage cheese and mustard?
No.
Okay, so
I'm still on Facebook Reels.
Okay. This woman, what is her name? Tiffany. I'm forgetting her name. I was like into watching her for a little while. She would put together what she called a Tiffany plate, and it was like cottage cheese, mustard, and then a bunch of vegetables, and she would dip them in the mustard and the cottage cheese, and it really was like, was like fetish stuff almost. Like it's the kind of thing where you're watching it and you're like, for sure. Oh, and there was a sausage in there too. And she'd like take a bite of the sausage and it would like drip on her face. And it's like, how is this not fetish stuff? It is. But she got a lot of attention for this cottage cheese and mustard like diet kind of thing. And she was like, morning shows were putting her on. And I was like, why does she bother me so much? There's something about her that bothered me, but she was also like very watchable. But anyway, there's this, My Adventure to Snark. So her name was My Adventure to Fit on some social media thing. And then I found this page on Reddit, My Adventure to Snark. And it's just people just making fun of her and picking her apart.
Right.
And then I found there's another one for like another TikToker and like tons, and then I realized, oh, this is just a thing. It's just a thing that when you reach a certain level of, when you're a public figure who has a certain amount of attention on them, people want to pick you apart.
Right.
And they're like, and understanding that gave me a framework to understand not that there was never, as far as I know, an Allison Rosen snark page, but there was certainly snarky stuff about
me. I'm going
to
start one just
Please
so that
do.
you feel
Thank
successful.
You.
You know what I mean?
I
you feel like you've risen to that level.
Thank you very much. So I do think it is a phenomenon that I think we even talked about some of this last time you were on.
I think
it's just a phenomenon.
I think, there are certain audiences though, like the Carolla audience is mean. I mean, they're very mean. So when people revel in being really mean, they're going to hate on you. Like that's what they do. But I think what's so interesting is like, at the time that was probably a lot, but then like now you're gone and like a lot of those people also miss you. So, you know what I mean? Then they snark on the next person.
Right.
Then they go like, well, God, Allison was amazing. Like we need Allison back. And if you probably knew their actual names of people, you'd be like, dude, it was only a couple months ago that you hated me so much.
Yes, I know.
It's just like their mood. I don't know. I think I can't. So the people like that are going to hate me for my politics. They're going to hate how I'm raising my kids. There's so many juicy things to hate about me that I can't get into reading any of it.
Yeah. Good. It's not going to help you do anything to read it.
No.
Okay. So 6 books here. This is your 6th book.
Yeah.
Can you quickly go through and just kind of like tell me what each one was about so we can differentiate them?
Okay. So Sippy Cups Are Not for Chardonnay was me kind of taking apart like that first year of having a baby and all the things that I didn't experience that I thought I'd experience and everything that's annoying and all that. And the being Sippy Cups Not for Chardonnay was not intended, even though a lot of people think it was, to be any comment on actual drinking. I made a lot of jokes about drinking and how much I enjoyed drinking and how necessary to child raising my wine habit was, which obviously I've changed my mind on that. But my point of that was like, don't put your Chardonnay in a sippy cup. Put it in like a nice glass. Like you deserve like just because it was sort of like an anti-minivan comment, even though I of course was in a minivan before you know it. But anyway, then I wrote Nap Time is the New Happy Hour, also with the alcohol, motif on the cover and in the book. And that was about toddlers, not as widely read because, people, here's what happens. You have a baby, you get pregnant, you want to read all the pregnancy books. Then you have a baby and you're like, oh my God, what happened to my life? I must read all the books, especially with people that seem like they're snarky or, help me feel better. Then when you have a toddler, you're very busy. You're not like looking for toddler books. You're like, I'm in hell right now. Like I don't have time to read. So then I got a deal to write something that I wanted to write. They were like kind of left it open to me. And I was like, great. I want to write about like being in my 20s. So It's Not Me, It's You was stories about like moving to LA at 18, 19 years old and all the crazy things that I got into. I think there's a story about my first like a telemarketing job that I had and a story about going on Hollywood Squares. I had all these like
where you won
misadventures where I won a car.
That's amazing.
I had a lot of like crazy things, crazy stories that I was like, let me tell these stories. They're kind of essays. And, it was personal and fun. And then I'm kind of a big deal. I had a 2-book deal. So they allowed me to write a follow-up. I don't know why, because It's Not Me, It's You did not do well at all. And then looking back, I think the problem was, I didn't even realize, but I had established kind of a brand of writing about having a kid and having this snarky, funny, right? But I didn't know that. I was just like, well, cool, I'm an author now. So like, I'm going to just write about other stuff. And people were like, well, we're not going to read that.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really have anything to do with
we're all moms,
we know you. And we want to read about you being a mom.
Right.
But I was like, but I'm all talked out on that.
Yeah.
So then I wrote a second book of stories about my 20s, got on the Today Show. I've been on the Today Show for all of them. I went on the Today Show for that book. And there's a one chapter that was my fourth book. There's one chapter about getting Botox for the first time, like in my early 40s. And the Today Show decided that they were going to give me a segment to promote my book. But then they kind of went back on it. They were like, we really want to talk about like you being a minivan mom who's like scared of aging. So you're getting Botox. And I was like, why? Like, but that's not what the book is.
Right.
No other chapter in the book is about that. It's all about like crazy stories, me doing drugs. Like it kind of ends on a sweet note of like, now I'm like this mom who's like, oh God, how do I keep up being cool? Well, I don't want to have wrinkles, Okay, so I get on the show and they bring on like a psychologist with me. This like
they didn't tell you they were going to do this?
No, not the night before. They told me. They're like, we're thinking of bringing on this like celebrity like psychologist who's going to. And so basically, it was like Ann Curry and this psychologist talking to me about like, why do you feel like you're so scared of aging or whatever.
Oh God. And you have to be like, I'm not.
I know. I was like trying to say that's not what the book is about.
Right.
And that book did terrible. And then somebody.
And that was, I'm kind of a big deal.
I'm kind of a big deal. And somebody wrote a review and they were like, this doesn't have anything to do with like, I saw this author on the Today Show and like, this doesn't have anything to do with like being a mom. I was like, I know. I'm with you. So then some years go by and I get another book deal.
Were you upset about how that went down though?
I was really upset about it. I felt like it was such a missed opportunity. But then again, I don't know. I don't know that the book would have sold anyway. I just don't know that that's what people wanted from me. So then I got a TV show. Then I was
Parental Discretion on Nickelodeon, right?
Then I was pitching a book called Fuck It, I'm 40. So that's how long ago it was because now I'm well into my 50s. So I was pitching this book and people were like, nobody wants to read a book about aging. They'll just like, women will just read stuff like that online or in magazines. And I was like, well, okay, but this is like a funny book about getting.
But what about Nora Ephron? I feel bad about my
neck. Thank you. That was in our proposal. That was like, people love that book, but whatever. They said no. But then my publishing company turned around and they were like, hey, you have this TV show for moms. What about writing another mommy book? And I was like, okay, sure. So that's when I wrote Gummy Bears Should Not Be Organic. Now my kids are a little bit older. So I wrote more stuff about having like school age kids but it was like kind of hard to come up with
stuff that
reach a point where you're like, I'm a mother and I love my kids but like I'm not like that mad anymore. You know what I mean? Like I don't have that much to get off my chest.
Right.
Like it's like you're just doing the deal.
Was it also a challenge because I have found as they get older, you want to reveal less about them. Like when they're babies, 100%. They're just like a little mushy generic thing. And then as they get older, it's like, because I mean, it's actually not that much of a problem on Childish with Greg Fitzsimmons. But there are things where I'm like, would Elliot or Owen, are they going to be upset that I talked about that on air?
So that's a really good point. And when I wrote that book, I was very mindful of that. I didn't mention any of my kids by name. So you would never know who I'm talking about. You know what I mean? If I said my daughter, it could be either one of my daughters. Right. I also kept the stories to stuff when they were babies. So I used references. I used examples of like, I talked about stuff happening at school, like fundraising and, I made fun of stuff that I could make fun of, but it wasn't. And there was definitely stuff about the kids, but it wasn't really making fun of anything they did. Right. I made sure that there was nothing that they would look back on later and go, why did you say that? Like, I didn't want to exploit. And I'm also careful of that on my podcast.
Yeah.
If I want to tell a story about my kids, I ask them first.
Do they usually say yes?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. But there's certain things where they worry that like, oh, what if somebody heard it and then they got in trouble? Like if, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It gets thornier as they get older. So then that brings us to Drunkish.
Yeah. So then I didn't write a book for like a few years. I just didn't have anything to say. I was busy podcasting and doing my thing. And then you and I were talking about this off the air a little bit. I talk a lot on For Crying Out Loud. I've talked a lot about addiction. I'm very open with, you know, my sobriety and getting sober and telling stories. And people, they relate. A lot of people struggle with drinking, like more than you think. And their relationship with alcohol. And like, am I or aren't I, you know,
an alcoholic,
or do I need to quit, or do I need to, how can I, all this stuff. And I would get a lot of private messages from people. And it just occurred to me one day, like the conversations I have with my friends, the conversations I have with people in recovery, like maybe I could tell that story in a way that's not preachy. You know, I've never been like a hardcore, like, this is the way you do it and you better get a higher power. And like, I've just kind of not been like that. So, and I think that like, let's have a sense of humor about like, you know, it's a serious subject, but I think you can see in the book, I'm trying to have, and the joke is on me because there's a lot of stories in the book about my denial.
Yeah.
Which I think is fun because I didn't want to write a book from 14 years out that's like, guys, my life is so much better. I'm really into wellness.
A life of my wildest dreams.
Yes. I'm just so grateful every day. Like I wanted to write the book that's like the first few, like what that felt like in the first few months and like go to a concert sober. Are you out of your fucking mind? Like how am I supposed to just sit on the couch and watch Housewives with my husband without drinking 4 glasses of wine? Like I don't know how people function.
So I know that for a while you felt that you were not an alcoholic. Like that label didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Now do you feel that you were?
Yes.
Okay. So you embrace the term now.
Yeah, because I don't find the word so threatening. And I say this in the book that it's like for a long time I felt like that label is very final. Like once you say I'm an alcoholic, like you can't go back on that. You know, because then people are going to be like, "Oh, so you're an alcoholic but you're drinking." But you're drinking again. You can't really be like, yeah, that whole thing where I thought I was an alcoholic, I just overshot the mark a little bit. Like, did I have a little problem for a while? Yes. But like, it's totally fine now. Like I'm better. You can't do that. So I fought that idea that like, oh, I'm this thing, I'm this label, I'm this, and I didn't want to be like, oh, Stefanie, the alcoholic.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, and also my idea of an alcoholic was somebody like, you know, like Meg Ryan in A Man Loves a Woman, like, you know, falling through her shower door or, you know, it was
a TV movie.
It was somebody drinking out of a brown paper bag. It was, you know, on the side of the road. It was like pretty clear to me. And there is a chapter in the book where I talk about it. Early on in my 20s, I had this friend named Landry who was such a classic alcoholic. He was a great guy, still is, and he's sober, but he would have like 2 drinks and already be kind of slurring his words. And I was like, oh, see, that's I was always able to go like, that person is an alcoholic, me, no.
Right.
So the thing that changed for me was once I hadn't been drinking for a while and I could more realistically and not out of fear, but out of like, okay, now that I've had some distance, I can kind of look back at some of the ways I behaved and even going back to my first drinking experience and go, have I ever had a normal relationship with alcohol? And the answer was no. Like, and could I look at some of my other behaviors? And I don't even want to say behavior. That almost sounds judgy, but like things about me. Obsessive nature, you know, could I understand that like maybe that's just who I am? And I had a father who was a pill addict, and instead of fighting so hard, could I see this as a way to rest my mind about it? could I just go like, okay, whatever alcoholism is, I know that I'm not predictable when I drink. And to me, that was the bottom line, was like, sometimes I have a glass of wine and I don't have more, but towards the end, every single day. Mm-hmm. So like not every day was I having 4 glasses of wine,
right.
But 4 days a week I was, or a lot of times my intention would be, I'm just going to have a glass of wine, and then I'm having a big glass of wine. And then I'm like, well, I'm just going to have one more because I'm not going anywhere. And it's like that thing, my brain was like, I was always on that hamster wheel of like, do I have any more? But if I have more, does that mean I have a problem? So like, let me just put it down. But like when I put it down, I'm like, oh, good for me. I only had 1 glass of wine.
Right. Like for people who don't have a problem, it is not like that.
No,
it's not. There's not all that compulsive thinking and all that swirling stuff around it.
That's what I found out. And then I would go to recovery meetings and be around people that are like me. Mm-hmm. And the thing was, like, when I first went, I just went kicking and screaming. I was like, not that I was forced to, but right. I was like, I'm not going to relate to anybody. Like, this is going to be a bunch of old men in a basement with really bad problems. And what I found was like a bunch of normal people and a bunch of moms and a bunch of people that just drank the way I did.
Yeah.
Some of them more, some of them less. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, God, does it really matter? Like, the bottom line is I don't want to drink. And I'm trying to find a way to not drink. So does it matter what I call it? It's easier for me. It was easier for me to just say alcoholism. But I don't have a problem with like a substance use disorder or whatever. I just know that I shouldn't be drinking.
I thought it was interesting that the first time you tried to quit, you were in 11th grade. What were the circumstances of that again?
So
you were drinking all the time, right?
I was just I was so hungover all the time, every weekend, having blackouts.
And that's also interesting to me because did we talk about drinking? Like, I don't drink anymore either.
Oh, you don't? But you're not like sober,
well,
right?
Well, see, it's funny when you said that you hesitated to use the term alcoholic, because you can't go back on that. It made me remember that for the longest time, I would say I don't drink as opposed to I'm sober, because sober suggests a whole thing. And I don't know.
Right.
I wasn't like sure that I was never going to drink again, but I knew that but the truth is, like, I haven't had a drink in a super long time. And I did go to meetings and,
okay.
But I never did all the steps.
I'm not like a big book thumper. I don't.
Right. But
there's a lot of ways people get sober that I know, or people maintain not drinking.
Yeah. But it's so fun. Maybe it's because I knew you were coming on. I had a dream last night where I was talking about how I had been released from like the urge to drink. That happened really fast for me, but like it's not, I'm never tempted to have a drink anymore. It's like not even, it's just
How long has it been?
Probably about 13 years.
Oh my gosh. So like almost as long as me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. But although like I did have some sips of Mangria in order to be able to talk about it, but then I didn't drink it on air because I had some sips beforehand. And I like, that was one of the things he was upset about. But it's like, well, if it was important for me to drink it on air, then don't give it to me beforehand. I don't even drink, like I was trying not to get drunk.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. And it was, wait, why did I? Oh yeah. No, I know what I was going to say. So I did have a problem with, I had all my ways of justifying it. Like, well, I don't know that it's really it's really not really alcohol. Like, that's not my thing. But basically, I would have a few drinks, and then it just like let all the bad behavior that I wanted to cut out of my life, which had to do with like when I was in New York, like doing drugs and hanging out with guys that I knew weren't good for me. It all started by having a drink. Have a drink, and then it's like, well, of course I'm inevitably going to text that guy that I know is not good for me,
Right.
And it also was like, I'm not going to drink tonight. And then it's like, I just had a series of drinks. Like it was the control, I just, but what I was going to say is, and sorry,
no, it's a conversation.
I never experienced a hangover until I got older. Like I remember in college being like, I don't think I've ever had a hangover.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's dangerous.
I guess, yeah. And I just assumed it's because my body was metabolizing alcohol better back then or something. I don't know. But you were having them when you were young.
Oh, so sick. Like incapacitated the whole next day. And it was a whole thing where I'd have to pretend that I, had the stomach flu, or it was like, really? My parents just believed that every weekend I had the stomach flu? And I was like, you didn't take me to the doctor? Like nobody ever called me on my drinking back then. But yeah, it was every weekend. So, but we were all doing it. I lived in Spokane, Washington when I first started drinking, which is a kind of a blue collar town, not a lot to do. We weren't like going to the theater. We were going to a park and drinking beer.
Right.
So at some point, I moved from there to Springfield, Massachusetts for a few years. And I just was drinking. I found the kids that partied, In my mind, I thought everybody did, but I'm sure there were plenty of kids that didn't. I just didn't know them.
Right.
I gravitated towards like what I thought were edgier, fun people that did like to do what I like to do. And then just at one point, I was like, God, every weekend, like I can't seem to not do it. And even when I wouldn't be feeling well, I'd be like, if that's what we were doing, I would do it. So I got this idea where I was not like I thought I was an alcoholic, but where I was just like, I'm going to give my body a break from drinking, see if I can not drink. And it only lasted a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just interesting that you were already trying to control it at that age.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you take a quiz. And I don't know if it was the exact same one, but when I was in New York, there were these, I had fallen in with a group of people, and their substance use, and they were all functional. They all worked in publishing. They were like, they're still successful people, but they would drink it, party. It was like 24-hour partying. Like the drinking would start at, if it was the weekend at brunch. And then it was just like, and I could not keep up, nor did I have an interest in keeping up, although I was like dating one of the guys that was, a main part of this group. And that's how I was seeing all of it. But I remember in college, if I had a drink in the afternoon, I would just want to sleep at night. I could never do a marathon drinking thing.
I couldn't either. And, I always wanted to be able to.
Yeah. I couldn't pace myself.
No, me neither. I would get drunk and then be tired and need to go to bed.
And then it got to a point where I'm like, I haven't gone to sleep yet and I already feel the hangover setting in. Like I feel a headache. Yeah, I just couldn't do that. But anyway, I initially took the quiz thinking like they have a problem with it. Like, I'm going to take the quiz for them. And then somehow I was taking it for me. And then I also got the like, oh, what? I might be an alcoholic. And then I went to my first meeting a couple nights later.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah, I did that in my 20s and was like, these people are crazy.
Yeah.
These list makers.
Right.
Wow, this is so super strict.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, and again, I don't know if it was the same quiz. It was something online, but the quiz that you took was it's called 20 questions, right?
Yes, you can look it up online. You can take it yourself.
Yeah, maybe it was the same one. And so you think you're doing great because you're only answering like a couple yeses. And then you get to the end and it's like, if you answered one yes, you may have a problem.
Yes.
And if you know two or more, you
most definitely have are a problem drinker at the very least. Yeah,
it's a real surprise.
Well, because some of the questions, which I went through the list, I took the quiz. I used the whole list in the book, and some of the questions you do think as you're taking it, you're like, oh yeah, easily no,
right?
Like, oh,
I've never been in jail or whatever it is.
I've never been in jail. Have you lost like friends due to alcohol? No, gained them. Like, I mean, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
my life has gotten bigger.
No, I'm fun when I'm drunk. It's like, do you hang out with like lower companions or whatever? I'm like, no. Like higher right. I can hang out with comics. They're all lower companions. I don't even I'm not even repeating what I said in the book, but I'm just saying I remember taking the quiz and being like, I mean, some of them I was like, I mean, that's hard because like, do you drink to feel more confident? I'm like, well, yes and no. Like, I'm pretty outgoing, so I don't have trouble talking to people, but when I do stand up, I like to drink because I'm petrified of it.
Right.
So I need that, liquid courage. But like, that's job related. So shouldn't really count, all the justifications. But the ones, I think I said yes. I gave myself like a half a yes for that one.
Right. You had 2.5.
I had 2.5. Yeah. And then I was so bummed because I was like, even if I took away one of them, I'd still have 1.5.
Right.
Which would still make me a problem drinker.
I remember around the time that I took the quiz, a few days before I went to a meeting, the thing that I had decided before I'd it was before the quiz. I was working at Time Out New York. I was walking somewhere and I was like, I'm drinking my drinks too fast. So what I have to do
Good thinking.
Yeah, I got to find a way I got to order something that I don't like the taste of. Mm-hmm. And then that will make it so I don't suck it down.
I back you up on that.
Yeah, it's smart, right?
Right.
I just couldn't find that thing.
Right. Lynette always says spacers. Or I'll make myself have a glass of water in between.
Yes. That is a thing. Yeah.
Could do that. Got to slow it down.
Yeah. But some part of me soon realized that this attempt to manage it is an indicator that maybe there's something awry happening.
So things didn't get too bad for you.
Well, with alcohol, I mean, I threw up from drinking too much, in a number of places when I was younger. At this point, I wasn't still doing that as much. But no, I was dabbling in cocaine. Mm-hmm. But even that was the thing that I really was before I went to AA, I went to an NA meeting because I was like, that's my problem. That in the way that, have you ever been to an NA meeting? No. Are we even allowed to talk about it?
Not really, but it's okay because
in the way that
it's your own anonymity.
Yes.
You can do with your own anonymity what you choose. Yeah.
What my experience was, in the way that the program for drinking is a lot of people that are you'd see every day and you hang out with and you work with, and it's just very the program for drug use was oh my God, I am in a room with people that I would be afraid of if I saw them on the subway, and they're holding my hand and making me feel better.
Yeah.
It was so nice, but it was very eye-opening. Oh, this is a hardcore drug. People are trying to get off of hardcore drugs in this room.
Right.
Not what I'm dealing with. So for me, and similar to you, I was I've never had a nosebleed. I'm doing great at my job. Altogether, I've spent couple $100. It's none of the things
people
you hear about
for me.
Yeah, it's but it's never in the daytime. It was very much something that maybe someone else might just be this is how people stay up late in New York. Bars are open till 4. This is not a problem.
Right.
But for me, it felt like a problem because I was I hate this. I don't think that I should be doing this. It feels, I was raised, same with you, dare, and I was you do cocaine once and you have a heart attack. And then when that didn't happen, I was oh my God, I feel elated and I enjoy that. This is really, what a rush. Not even the rush of the drug. It was the rush of doing the drug.
Well, I started and stopped cocaine at 19. So I had the same experience as you, but in a shorter span of time. But I'm also very sort of hyper vigilant about myself, which is weird that it took me so long to quit drinking and was just such a different gray area for me. But yeah, cocaine felt the first time I did cocaine, I was this is the most amazing. Where has this been all my life? What? I remember the feeling of I want to hear everybody's life story. Mm-hmm. I am more interested in people than I've ever been in my entire life. Yeah. I want to sit and talk to you all night long. Just tell me about you, And then, but the come down was so hard. Mm-hmm. And also what I noticed right away was you get this super rush and I'm sure for everybody, not just people that are going to be addicted, but I got a huge rush. But then very quickly I was oh, I need more. As soon as that feeling started to go away, the obsession in my brain started in of well, how are we going to get more? Well, do you look cute enough? Well, are there people here that have it? Well, where are they going? Mm-hmm. Well, why did someone just go in the bathroom and why didn't they invite me?
Right.
And my brain was going so fast and it was such an unpleasant feeling. Mm-hmm. The high, the
chasing it.
Yeah, but also like the nervousness and the thing before, but after the intensity, you're just like, you just feel coked out.
Yeah.
Like you don't feel the good part.
Right.
You just feel nervous. And I still don't like that feeling. I don't like drinking too much coffee. I get the jittery feeling.
Yeah.
I don't like that feeling.
Right.
I much prefer a downer. Right. But I would do it because my brain would remember the last time I did it, how fun it was at the beginning. So it became like a little cycle but same as you, I didn't have a nosebleed. I wasn't doing it during the day and people were buying it for me. But one night I was so coked out. I couldn't come back down. And I remember that I'd gone off with some guy. And this was like, I was 19 years old, had been hanging out with some people, some older guy, probably like in his 30s, which seems so old at the time, with like a big mustache. I remember getting in his car because he was like, had all the drugs. And he was like, I'm a realtor. Or he was like
See, you were hanging out with lower people or whatever the term is.
No, I don't. Right. I didn't know I didn't understand any of that. At the time, I was like, I want more cocaine. So I got in this guy's car with a friend and we went with these guys to some like up on Mulholland, some like construction site. And I remember the guy like feeding me cocaine off a credit card and just being so high. And I had this thought of like, I can't keep doing like this is not fun. What am I doing? And then I thought I have to just never do it again because I will trick myself. It was the exact same thing with alcohol, except that alcohol took me another like 20 years.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm not going to be able to just do a little bit ever. And I'm not going to be able to like, unless I make a rule that I just don't do it at all, then I will do it whenever it's offered to me.
Right.
Right. So I made this decision and I like never got offered it again. I just never did it again.
See, I'm very impressed with that because.
But I used to get drunk sometimes. This comedian friend of mine reminds me of this. I used to get drunk sometimes. And this was like in my 30s. He said I would get drunk and then be like, let's get Coke. And I wouldn't remember it the next day. I'd be like, no, I didn't. He's like, yes, you did. You were like trying to ask people if they would buy you Coke.
I am relating to all of this. Yeah.
So then
I felt so much shame about.
So then did you just never do Coke again? Like once you made the decision or?
No, that was the problem is that I made the decision. I went to that meeting, made the decision, and then I didn't touch it again. And then I was dating this guy. All of my substance stuff was wrapped up with dudes.
Okay.
Dating this guy, or I'd met this guy and I knew that he did it. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then I don't know how long I lasted. I think the first time I didn't. And then the second time I did. So then I was doing it again. Again, I didn't have any in my house. It was a recreational thing, but I didn't feel casual about it. And then stopped again.
It's weird that cocaine, drinking, pot, these are all drugs that you could say do it socially. Yet meth, somehow that's the heavy. Like you can't be like, oh, I just do meth socially. Like if I'm at a party, I'll do some meth.
Right. Maybe because it lasts so long is my understanding. But
is there too much of a commitment?
Yes. Right. Because isn't it like 24 hours or something? Yeah. So I'm just going to stay home and clean the bathroom. And then there was one more guy, and that's the one where I took the quiz. He was part of that whole world, that the high functioning substance abuse people. So yeah, I kept trying to quit it. Yeah, but basically it was that like there was a point in your book where you're like, I don't know what's going to happen if I don't stop doing this. And I've talked about this before. I slept with a married guy. I knew him. I didn't know his wife. Look at me. I'm trying to justify
Wait till you get to the last chapter in my book.
Okay. Okay. Great.
Called I'm Sorry About Your Bachelorette Party.
Oh.
The last chapter in the book. You'll enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's just say I did too.
Okay.
Go on.
And I felt so, to use that word again, ashamed. I was just like, I felt like I broke a law. he seemed totally fine with it.
Oh, yeah. And he probably did.
I don't think it was the first time he had cheated on his wife, even though he claimed it was, because he was so A-okay with everything.
Right.
But I was just like, I don't trust myself anymore. I don't know. That was that felt like it felt like a greater transgression than anything else I had done leading up to it. And that had to do with, that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't very drunk when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like sometimes you find yourself drinking to give yourself permission.
I think so.
To do the thing that you really think is going to fix you, that you want to do,
right? But
you wouldn't do because of your moral compass.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's just that like I wanted to be done with all of that acting out behavior, and as long as alcohol was in the mix, I wouldn't be able to, because I couldn't. Once I had some drinks in me, I just indulged everything I wanted to do. And also this idea of like, I do cocaine because it keeps me thin. Like, I think I gained weight on cocaine because I would come home and I would feel so unhealthy and bad that I would then just want to eat something. And then I was also drinking so much at the time too, that like it was definitely none of it was making me thin. Anyway, so tell me about, because you finally realized that you wanted to get sober at 42, right? Tell me about, or tell the listeners
my
about
bottom.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I had gone through this period where I was like, I'll just go take you back a little bit, where I have my daughter, my older daughter, Elby, and she's like 2 years old. And I went trick-or-treating. I was really trying to adjust to like mom culture. I was trying to embrace it a little bit. And I'm like, well, let's just make it fun for ourselves. If we're going to go trick or treating, let's do drinks. So I made these drinks. I called it a Tootsie Roll, and it was like orange juice and Kahlua. And then I promptly drank like 7 of them, and no one else really wanted any. Which to me, I was always like, what is wrong with these people? Right. Like, it's Halloween. But that was me. But it's Tuesday. Come on, you guys. Like, right. We don't have to work tomorrow. Whatever it was.
Margarita at lunch.
Yeah, exactly. I was any drinking ops, I'm in, So anyway, I got really drunk that Halloween night. And that was the first time that I could remember being drunk when my kid was awake and with me. She was only 2. So obviously she doesn't remember it. But I just felt so bad about it because I know that I'd acted, and nobody was mad at me. Like, I didn't do anything crazy. I wasn't like puking on the lawn or anything, but I had kind of bonded. I was with this friend of mine and her mother. So like the kid's grandmother, and I bonded with her and then barely remembered it the next day. Like, and my husband, John, was like, wow, you and so-and-so really hit it off. Like, you guys exchanged numbers. And honestly, I was like, what?
Yeah,
I did. And I just felt so bad about it that I was like, okay, I'm going to quit drinking. So I quit drinking. Then I got like 6 weeks later, we had been trying a little bit to get pregnant or thinking about it. And then 6 weeks later, I'm pregnant with twins. So I don't drink at all during that pregnancy. I also felt sick anyway, but I had made a commitment. I tried to quit drinking. I went to a meeting. I didn't take it that seriously because I was like, I'm not that bad, but I don't want to drink anymore. So I'm quitting. So I go through the whole pregnancy, not a drop of alcohol. And then I have the twins. And I was immediately like hormonal and anxious, and oh my God, I have 3 kids and postpartum depression again. And I'm back on Zoloft. As soon as I left the hospital, they put me back on Zoloft. So I'm taking that. I have all this anxiety. I get put on Xanax as needed, right? And then I decide, like, you know what I really need is alcohol, because I've already gone, like, now it's been, I won't say a year because my twins came a little early, so 33 weeks. So, but let's just say it had already been like 9 months, no alcohol. I was like, well, then I'm fine. Nothing to see here. So I start drinking again. And very quickly, it starts creeping up where it's like, I'm just having 1 glass of wine. Now I'm having 2 glasses of wine. Now every single night I'm opening the wine. And so that's when maybe the twins were like a few months old. That's when I'm like, okay, I really have to moderate this. Like, I have to make some rules because this could get out of control. And never mind it went out of my head that I'd even tried to quit drinking before that. It's always like starting over. It's like, oh, this is a new kind of drinking. This is the casual drinking that could get worse. So I'm just going to try to really be careful of it. And I remember that it was just that thing started up in my brain where it's like every night I'm like, okay, I'm not going to drink on the weekends. I'm only going to drink on weekdays. And then it would be like, well, that doesn't seem like a good idea. I have to drink on the weekends. So I'm going to not drink on weekdays and I'm going to drink on the weekends. But then I'm like, well, the weekend's only like 2 days. Well, 3 if you count Friday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I can drink. But then the rest of it was a constant.
Yes, I hear that.
So it went on and on and on where I was like, okay, I'm going to only drink wine. I'm going to only drink beer. And this went on for a while. And I would keep breaking it and keep ending up.
Were you telling anyone else your rules, or were these like?
Not really. And also I wasn't sharing it that much with my husband because I didn't want him watching my drinking. I didn't want to be like, I'm not drinking on Tuesdays and Thursdays anymore. And then I didn't want him being like, well, it's Tuesday. Why are you drinking?
Yeah.
Fuck off. Don't tell me what to do when I can and can't drink.
Yeah.
I made that rule for myself. So it was just something I was doing, but I was very conscious of the fact that I kept making a commitment, I kept making a rule, and I kept breaking it. So now the twins are like, maybe they're like a year old at this point, or maybe a year and a few months. And I was like, you know what? This is so tiring for my brain to be thinking about this all the time. And I started to think, this is like dieting. Like I tell myself I can't have stuff and then I feel deprived and I have more. So what would be better and probably healthier is to just let myself drink and like stop being so hard on myself. Like I'm not a crazy drinker. I'm not an alcoholic.
Yeah, it's self-care.
It's self-care. Relax. Like here's the thing. I'm going to just drink what I want when I want. And then that's going to make me probably drink less.
Intuitive drinking.
Mindfulness. Yeah. That was my thing. I was like, I'm going to be aware. And I'm going to try not to drink if I'm stressed out or something. I'm going to drink when it's like appropriate. And then I thought I was doing that. So in my mind, I was doing that. What it was is I was giving myself an excuse to drink every single day.
Right.
But I was like, but I'm home and the kids are in bed. So like, what's the harm?
Right.
I was never like drunk around my kids. I was never sloppy as far as I knew. I was also taking Xanax. So I didn't even know if I would start drinking at like 5 o'clock, have a couple glasses of wine. Then it would be bedtime. I had little kids. So then the kids would go to bed and I'm home. Like I'm not going anywhere. So I'm like home watching TV. And then my husband would come home and then I'd open another bottle of wine and then I'd get real tired, i.e. drunk. And then I'd be like, good night. Took my Xanax so I can go to sleep. Doctor prescribed, and then so that goes on for like a few months. And then I got invited to like a little get together at this woman's house. My friend brought me over and she was like, you're going to love these people. This is like the coolest group of people. They're kind of partiers, but like a lot of moms. And it was like a group of moms. It was so fun, right? I was like, oh my God, why don't I do this more often? Like this is so sophisticated. These are all adults that are also cool and have cool jobs. And there was a nanny there watching the kids, and they were serving like fancy drinks. It was apricot martinis is what I was drinking. And I remember the taste of the first one going down and I was like, oh my God, this is delicious. Why don't I ever drink martinis? Like what's happening? I don't know what I've been missing. The kids, I got one of the 18 months olds with me and then my older daughter who's 4 at this time, and they're playing, they're having a great time. There's like a big yard. It's like late afternoon.
Okay. It's
like, let's say it's like 5 o'clock.
Okay.
Now it's like, and I'm thinking it's not at night. Yeah. It's like afternoon. So we're going to do that till like bedtime. And then I'm going to go home and put the kids to bed. So I'm having like a martini and I'm not thinking that much of it. Cause I'm like, well, I'm not driving for a while. I'm going to be here. Let's say we got there at 4 and I was staying till 8, So then my friend goes to leave and she's like, and now I've had like a couple of martinis and she says like, are you okay? Like, are you going to be able to drive home? And I was so annoyed, like what, of course I'm going to be okay. Like, what am I, irresponsible? Like I'm fine and I'm here for a while. Like I'm not going anywhere. Then I have like another drink. And this is how I drink. I always think I'm fine. Like when I drink, I have no idea if I'm drunk. Like because I don't think I ever got like super slurry and messy. I would just get kind of defiant and like thinking I'm having a great time and intense, you know? Like I want to have conversations. I feel really good. I'm making plans. I'm going to start a business. Like that was me drunk. It was just like,
oh, that was me on Coke.
Okay. Right.
Well, I wanted to start a band with so many people. I had been in a band in real life when I had never even been near drugs. But all of a sudden it seemed like a great idea. We're going to start a band. Let's just jam. Oh my God. But anyway, okay. So that's interesting. See, I would have like, I mean, almost like Landry, like I'd have a sip and I would like begin to feel it. Like I was such a lightweight and I could not, you know, like you could see it in my eyes if I could not hold my liquor well. So you sound like the opposite.
Well, yes and no. I mean, because I couldn't drink more than I was a lightweight in the way that like if I had like 4 glasses of wine, I wanted to go to bed. But it just depended on the circumstance. And I like even that night, I don't think I had that many martinis, but I was drinking hard liquor.
Martinis are strong.
They're strong.
Yeah.
And I wasn't used to like now I sound like I'm almost like making excuses. But I was used to having wine and then being near my bed. So like once I've had 3 glasses of wine, I'm tired.
Yeah.
Now I'm drinking this alcohol and I'm like, I feel great. I feel fine. And I was excited because there were people to talk to and, you know, people like, it was just fun. I was having a great time. My friend leaves because she's going on a trip the next morning and I'm there with all these people I don't really know. But again, there's a nanny watching the kid. And I believe I had like one more drink. Now, meanwhile, my husband is trying to call me. This was back in the day. I believe I only had like a flip phone. So he's trying to call me and I'm not answering the phone. Why? Because I'm like, this bitch is home with 1 baby. I've got 2 of them with me. Like, can I not just go out and have a good time? Like, what could you need from me? Like,
figure it out.
Like, I'm having fun. And I have 2 of the kids. It's not even like you're watching 3 kids.
Right.
And, you know, which has happened. And I'm out having fun. I can understand more that he's like, hey, when are you going to be back? But I'm like, you're on vacation. You're in Hawaii right now with 1 kid.
With your 1 kid.
I'm busy with 2 of them. So anyway, I'm kind of irritated and I'm not answering. And then my friend tells me, hey, I think this was like right before she leaves. She's like, John is trying to call you. He called me looking for you. So call him back. Couldn't tell you if I even called him back or not, but I remember thinking like, I better go home. So I got in the car and I drove home. Like a 5-7 minute drive home. My husband is waiting in the driveway, furious.
You can tell just when you pull up.
Oh my God. My husband has some tells and he does not get really mad very often at all. He does not have a temper. So seeing him, he was doing this thing where he like, this is not good podcasting, but he like rubbing his wrist and he's standing in the driveway and I see him doing that and I'm immediately mad back because I'm like,
where does he get off?
Why is he mad? Oh my God. Why are you calling me all night? And
what time would you say this was?
I don't even know. Probably like 8:30.
Okay.
8, probably. Yeah. Like not late, you know, he's like, you're drunk. And I was like, no, I'm not drunk, you know, so mad.
And you thought you were not drunk.
I thought I was not drunk. Although like, I thought I was not drunk. So I'm mad. I'm mad that he's mad. I'm like feeling controlled. I'm so like, what is my life? I've got all these kids. They're so young. I never even saw myself as being like, I can't even go out one night to like have some fun even with the kids. I just remember feeling so sorry for myself. And then I woke up on the couch the next day, which was unusual. We're not big like fighters where like you sleep on the couch. And I was fully dressed. And I was so sick, like one of the worst hangovers I've ever had. And it hit me like, what did I just do? Like, if I'm this hungover, then he was 100% right. And I was really drunk. And it makes sense that I was drunk because I was freaking drinking martinis all night. Like, what did I think? And I had the worst, like, I was so humiliated. I was so scared. I was hit with the truth that like people that are not do not have a drinking problem do not do that, because I would have judged the shit out of another mom who like if I had been sober and there was a mom drinking at a party and then got in her car with her kids and drove home, I would be like, oh my God, she should be arrested.
Yeah.
So I saw myself as that. I realized that that's who I am. I just did that. And even though like I have grace for myself now because I didn't know, like I wouldn't have ever put my kids in harm's way. So therefore, when I have a few drinks in me, again, I go back to like, it doesn't matter if I have 10 drinks every time I drink and just get shit-faced. What matters is that I cannot predict my own behavior and I don't know what I'm going to do. And this was such a line in the sand that I'd made for myself that I just thought, for real, like I can't drink again. I did not think, oh my God, I'm such a bad alcoholic. I thought, wow, I am not a safe person to drink, because I thought if I was to go tell John, honey, I'll never do that again. I promise you. Like I was having martinis. I didn't know how much I was having. I didn't think I was drunk. I could tell him that. And I knew that he'd be like, okay, of course, like that was a really bad decision. Please don't ever do that again, you know? But I was like, but I will probably do it again. I'm not going to do it again tomorrow because I'm going to be really scared. But at some point, if many times when not every time, but if I've had these experiences and I've not meant to get drunk and then I've gotten drunk and ended up puking or whatever, how can I responsibly say, but the next time it will be different?
Right.
And I had this complete epiphany that like, wow, I have really done that a million times in my life. I have a million times been like, maybe not a million, but I've many, many times been like, I'm not going to drink anymore.
Right.
That will never happen again. And then done it. So I thought, you know, I got really lucky this time. But then what my next thought is like, well, I've also sworn off drinking many, many times in the past and then eventually done it again. So I thought I'm going to have to do something different. And then that's when I like called my friend. My best friend had been sober for like 2 years. And I was like, hey, can you help me? Like, I don't ever want to drink again. And then that's how I got started. But like going back to what you were saying before, I wasn't like, I'm an alcoholic. I'm going to go tell the world that I'm an alcoholic. And you know what I mean? No,
right.
it was a gradual acceptance.
So how could he tell you were drunk?
My husband?
Yeah.
Oh, because I was like staggering.
Okay.
I just didn't know I was.
Got it.
No, I was pretty obviously drunk, according to him, like staggering up the driveway. He was appalled that I'd driven.
Right. With your children.
With my children in the car. I could have killed them. I could have killed somebody else. I could have killed myself. I could have gotten pulled over and had them taken away from me. And then I would have been one of those women going like, oh my God, I don't normally drink that much. Like, you know.
It's really intense.
It's so intense.
I mean, that to the realization you had of like, oh my God, that could have been so bad. I don't trust myself.
I cried about it for like 2 years. You know, like anytime I told the story in a meeting or, you know, it was so emotional for me.
Yeah. And
I thought, and somebody said to me early on, they were like, one day you're going to be grateful that you did that. And I was like, I will never be grateful that happened. And I'm not grateful I did that, but I am grateful that something happened.
Right.
To make me realize that I shouldn't drink. Because now my life is, life is better without drinking, but I needed something to make it really clear to me. Like, do you feel like you had like a clear moment? Was it the married guy?
Yeah. And I also stopped dating after that too. I was just like, I need to remove myself from all this stuff. I'm trying to think if it was anything else. No, I think that was the moment. I was just like, for me, that was like, and I don't even think I knew it until it happened. Like if someone had said, what do you think about sleeping with a married guy, I would have said like, it's bad. Don't do it, you know?
Right.
But but the feeling and the reaction I had when I realized what had happened was so, it truly, I felt like I broke a law.
Was he like, I'm going to leave my wife for you? Like,
no. No, we weren't. There was like some talk.
Had there been a
like,
flirtation?
Yes, there had been a long
sexual tension. Yeah.
We were at a party together. And he was someone that I worked with, basically, but he didn't work at the magazine. I worked at the magazine, and then I was doing like a lot of TV stuff. So I knew him through TV things.
Okay.
He was a producer.
Okay.
And so then at a party for the network, it was a Christmas party, he was being very friendly, but he had on a wedding ring. His wife wasn't there, but I knew he was married, but he was being very friendly, and I felt like he was being flirtatious, but I wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then he, at the very end of the night, he like walked me to get a cab, and then he kissed me. And I was like, that's weird.
Like on the mouth?
Yeah, like a real kiss. Yeah, like at the end of a date or something.
Right.
And I was like, this is okay. So he had been flirting with me all night. And then he called me the next day to apologize. And I normally did not answer. Wait, did he leave me? I didn't normally answer my phone. Did he leave a message? Maybe he left a message and I called back, which I knew when I was calling back, like that part I kind of saw clearly. Like I knew he was calling to apologize, but I knew that this is almost like a test to see how I'm going to react. Because if I blew him off, then he would know that I was not giving him a green light.
Right.
Versus I called him back, which I knew like this is probably giving him a green light, even though I'm not giving him a green light. But I was so like I was really into the attention. And so then we had this email, like nonstop, like a lot of emails and a lot of like getting to know each other. And his wife was out of town and we went to dinner. And I went into that like nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. I'm going to have a drink. Nothing's going to happen.
Having a drink with a guy. Just you and a guy having a drink. You're just friends.
I'm getting advice on my television career, really. Yeah. So this is kind of like a work thing.
It's a consulting thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And the irony being, my behavior could have been so detrimental to my career. But instead, I had convinced myself my real addiction was like bad guys. Like right. That was the addiction for me. That was when you're talking about the way you would begin to be OCD about, do I have more alcohol? The second I liked a guy who seemed to like me, I would be OCD about like maintaining his interest in me. And does he still like me? And what did he mean by that? And I mean, it's it's
a hard one to break.
Yeah. So had a few drinks. Yeah. I had convinced myself this is actually like good for my career to be, to get close to him, even, but not like do anything inappropriate, but just like, we ended up making out that night, kissing. Or was that? Okay. I'm getting the nights confused because there was so much alcohol. There was another time. Yeah. And then it's a long story, but we slept together. Maybe it was that. See, there was another time. And then I told him that we needed to break it off. And he was like really hurt by this. But actually we did, like we stayed, cordial.
Right.
But that was it. Like nothing physical ever happened again. But also I would start going to more meetings. And then, I've been in therapy for a long time. I was in therapy at that point.
But it's like a drug. That feeling when then you have to cut yourself off from that and go, it's not good for me.
Right.
It's never going to come to anything.
But see, if he hadn't been married, I probably would have stayed in that for a lot longer, even though he was not right for me because I just was like, there were so many guys where I'm like, I am addicted to the feeling I get when they pay attention to me, even though like I know this is going to hurt me. This is not going to be good for me.
Right. I think a lot of women feel that way.
Yeah.
A lot of men feel that way.
At a certain point, I realized there's power and like a good, powerful feeling in going, instead of trying to figure it out, just being like, I don't like how this feels. Because I had always pushed aside how things feel. And it's not about that. It's about like what's logically happening, what's realistically happening. Because, I don't want to be unfair to someone. And maybe my feelings are unwarranted or maybe I'm overreacting. But I got to a point where I would just be like, this, and it could be anything, a job or a friendship or anything, just like sometimes things with my family of origin, just like, I don't, regardless of who's in the right or whatever, like this feels atrocious. I would like to remove myself from this situation.
Right.
It took me a long time to realize that though.
And also depending on how things are when we're growing up, like we can develop, like I know that feeling with guys too, that pining feeling, which I always mistook for love, like that intensity.
Yeah.
Even if the intensity didn't feel good, it felt painful. The unrequited feeling, and how can I make him notice me, and how can I make him like me? And then once I was with the person or had slept with the person or whatever, it was like, oh no, are they lose?
Yeah.
How come I haven't heard from them? And that like living for the phone ring, like that feeling though, I mistook for so long for love. Like that's what it's, I guess, feels like.
Yeah.
And if I didn't feel that feeling, that guy was thrown away. Like, or if I felt the feeling and then they actually did like me, then I was like, oh,
me too.
I don't like him anymore.
Me too.
Like, and it would come
scary.
very suddenly. Yeah, it was like real fast. Like I could go from thinking I'm madly in love to like, I'm disgusted. Please. I can't see him one more time. Because,
like what's wrong with him that he likes me?
But that's not the conscious thought. The conscious thought was like, oh, he's not that cute. I don't know what I was thinking. Or like what, or whatever the thing was, I could come up with any excuse for, oh God, this guy likes me too much.
Right.
And he's depending on me for his happiness. And now I feel so smothered that I can't spend one more. And then I would get mean or I would just like break it off. And it was a whole like retraining to understand that like when somebody, like to meet my husband was really like the first guy that was very nice to me and very consistent. And I did not know that like I would be able to feel that, because it was very difficult to go like, oh, how to have a relationship with the absence of like that tension, that scared feeling.
Right.
That how can I make him that wanting to prove myself to him.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, I had that a little bit at the beginning with him just because he's very laid back. And so it tricked me. I was like, well, I don't think he likes me enough. And then so I worked for it for a while, which I think in retrospect was kind of funny because he was like already in.
But you just didn't know.
I didn't know. So I worked kind of hard.
Yeah. It's funny. I think that of all the guys that I was involved with, I'm going to say something that maybe I don't agree with it, but I think if my husband and I broke up, I would be able to handle it more than I could have handled any of those because being with him doesn't take away from my sense of self. Like it makes me stronger. The truth is, I would not.
You'd be devastated.
I'd be devastated. We have children together. We have a life together. He's the love of my life. Like,
but it doesn't feel like. But I don't feel. What you're saying.
I don't feel dependent on him. I don't feel like we're. I don't feel like we're enmeshed in that way that it was with the other people, where I would lose myself right away, and then it's like if they didn't like me back, I'm like, well. I guess I'll just die now because I have ceased to exist.
Yes.
I don't have that with my husband. I couldn't have this long a relationship with someone that I still had that with,
I completely agree with you. That's That's like an epiphany right there.
Oh.
I feel the same way. Like I know what you're saying. I feel like because you're not scared.
Right.
Because you're not scared that he's leaving you.
Right.
Or cheating on you or he doesn't like mistreat you and then make it up to you. And then like he doesn't keep that toxic thing going so that you feel like, oh God, if he stopped caring about me, if he went away, I wouldn't know what to, like, it would be so awful.
Right.
Right.
Like we're two equals in a partnership.
Right. Which feels boring sometimes. Like
definitely,
you have to own the fact that like healthy love feels boring sometimes, especially for people that have addictive tendencies.
Totally.
Like it feels like something that you have to, sometimes I have to remind myself to be nice. Like I have to go like, okay, that's your husband who loves you. Like don't treat him like a piece of shit. Like not that
I've definitely had moments where I'm like, I'm taking him for granted.
Yeah. But what a nice thing to have is like somebody that you take for granted a little bit as opposed to
the chaos.
Yeah. It's such growth.
Good for us.
Look at us.
We made it.
We should write a book about like healthy relationships.
Yes. Because we have it all figured out. Stephanie.
Yeah.
This was so nice. Now, I typically do some segments, but given that I have I'm holding your entire evening hostage.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, after this, we're recording a Patreon friend zone. Friend zone is what I call my Patreon podcast.
Okay.
And immediately after this, I'm going to take a bathroom break, but then we're going to do that. I feel like we should do the segments on that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Just in the interest of time.
Let's do it. Whatever you think.
Okay, let's do that. Well, let's do one on this one.
Okay.
Let's do...
Can we do the is it just me one?
Just me or everyone.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Because I have one for that.
I would love to hear it.
But I really do think in this case it's just me.
Okay.
Sometimes I ponder on something I have thought or done. Is it just me or everyone?
So... I didn't know if it should be something that you're not sure, like you think it could. I really think it's just me. But if it is other people,
please
I will feel such deep relief.
Yeah.
So you know how Wordle was a thing for a while? And then I was very addicted to Wordle every day and getting like real OCD about it. Like if I lost my streak, that I was very upset. But then there's also a thing on the New York Times called Spelling Bee, which hits some reward center in my brain. I don't know what it is. And I'm like really addicted to it. But it's so bad that I will. So at midnight, like midnight on the dot, at 12 o'clock, the old one, you can see the answers. And then the new one is in there. And I will sometimes make myself stay awake because I have to know what from the night before. Like if I didn't make it to the highest level, I'm like, obsessed with like what words did I miss, and I will literally wait from 11 o'clock like and make myself stay up so that I can hit the clock and hit 12 and I can check and do and then I'll do the games for the next day. And I'm like I blow my wad at midnight on all the Wordle and the crossword, and there's something called all the New York Times games.
You do all of them at midnight basically.
Yes.
Like how many
me,
nights
right?
Well, okay. I don't do this.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's just you though.
I feel shame about it.
No, don't.
But I feel like it's such a sign that my brain is still very obsessive.
Yeah. Well, yes, probably. But you cannot be the only one. There's other people out there who are like, I'm surprised at the people who are still doing Wordle. I was like, you guys are still doing that?
I can't quit it. I can't quit you, Wordle.
I mean, no need to.
I wish I could though, because it has too much. It has a stranglehold on my brain at night. Like it's like a weird thing that I do.
There's no way you're the only one. I just am not one of those. I guarantee you.
I pay like $20. I paid $20 so that I could, because I would do the spelling bee thing, but if you don't pay, you can only do like a little bit of it.
Oh,
and
then you need the full
B. So one day I was like, I'm gonna do it. Like I really want to play this whole game. So I paid the $20, and I haven't missed one night since.
You're exactly you're their perfect game player.
It got me. That's
how does the spelling bee work?
So it's like It's like Boggle, I think. They give you a bunch of letters, and then the one in the middle, you can make as any words you want. You can repeat letters, but you have to use the letter in the middle. But sometimes it's hard.
To start the word or just in the word?
In the word. It has to be in the word.
Oh, and then you have to find.
But sometimes like there's no E. Like it's like, you know, M-I-O, L and a D, and you're like, okay, mild,
right?
But then you have to get a ton of words to get to like the highest level, which is genius. And I cannot rest until I've like hit genius.
See,
it's a problem. I have a Wordle problem.
Yeah, I mean, seems kind of benign unless you need to get up early and you're staying up so late. But I do hear the obsessiveness,
the pain. Do you hear the pain?
A little bit, yeah. See, for me, I'd be like hearing about it, that sounds exciting. I'm like, I should do this. But I know that I'd like get, 4/5 the way in and be like, I don't know. I don't want to spend another second doing this.
Yeah. Which would be good. That would be healthy.
I guess. But I mean, like, I'm like addicted to social media and scrolling on my phone. That's my addiction thing, where I'm like, my wrist hurts, my neck hurts. Like I'm gonna throw up if I don't put my phone down.
See, and I get bored of that. Really? And I wish I was a little more addicted to that because I need to be like for my job, but I'm just not.
That's the justification though. I mean,
but I feel like I should be more up on TikTok, and I should be, I will watch. I really like to watch those Instagram reels of the people that give random strangers money.
Oh, I've never seen that.
Oh, it's a whole thing. It's like, what do you call it when there's a TikTok when it's a thing? Like it becomes in part of your algorithm.
Trending.
It's not that it's trending,
but
meme. It's in my algorithm. Like, so I get a bunch of them. There's a lot of these guys. It's mostly guys. I've only seen men do it, where they're like, and everybody always seems to know who they are. Oh, you're the Beast guy. And
wait, Mr. Beast? Is that one of them? Mr.
Beast is one of them.
My kids know who that is. I've never seen Mr. Beast, but he's rich.
And it's like they bless people. They're like, I want to bless you today with some, and then they'll just give a random stranger like $500. And it's like, I'm like, sometimes I cry.
Yeah,
like, I get really into those. Yeah.
I mean, that's wholesome content right there. I need to watch that. Stefanie Wilder-Taylor, thank you so much. The book is Drunkish. It comes out January 16th. Tell everyone.
A week from Tuesday.
Get
it anywhere.
Tell everyone where they can find you, plug all your things.
So I do For Crying Out Loud is my podcast with Lynette Carolla that you're coming on in just a couple weeks, I believe. And I mean, for sure this month. I forgot the exact date.
I believe it's January 23rd is our recording date, I think.
I think so. And then I have a podcast called Rose Pricks where I make fun of The Bachelor and Bachelor related content. And our season with Joey, Bachelor Joey, is starting on January 22nd. And then I have a podcast called Bored AF, which is just like fun stuff. And I teach writing. You can go to my website, StefanieWilder-Taylor.com.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And
your book that's reissued with 5 new essays. Tropical Attire and Courage.
And other phrases that scare me.
Allison has her book, it's old stories, but there are, you said 5 new essays.
There's 5 new essays with 5, because my husband did the illustrations. So there's 5 new essays with 5 new illustrations. So please get Tropical Attire and Courage and Other Phrases That Scare Me. And if you do get it, please leave a review on Amazon.
Allison needs some reviews.
I need some reviews because the original release, all the reviews are over there, but then you go to the new one, it needs the fresh reviews.
Give it some love.
Please give it some love. I'm on Patreon. Oh, I know what I was going to plug. I just remembered it. I was going to tell everyone we're going to do my new breakout segment. That's one of my favorites and people are liking it. Podcast Pals product picks. We're going to do that on the Patreon episode. I will still feature the product pics on Instagram, but maybe go check out Patreon because we're also going to answer questions that people sent in for Stefanie, and we're going to really get into all the, stuff that we can't say on the main episode.
Mm-hmm. We'll get juicy.
Patreon.com/Allison Rosen. And also my newsletter, my Substack, AllisonRosen.substack.com. But really, you can get to all this stuff by going to Allison'sLinks.com. It has links to all my things, Allison'sLinks.com. Thank you so much, Stefanie.
Thank you.
Listeners, thank you for listening. I love you. You matter. Goodbye.
Hey, do you know about the Allison Rosen Show?